Hi guys, welcome back to Core Java tutorial. This is the fourth video of Core Java tutorial, and in this video we're going to cover a very important topic which is called as OOPS. So the OOPS is a very important topic. Even if you're going for interviews and all, everybody will ask what is OOPS and what OOPS you aware and everything. And I have even taken a lot of interviews. I will be asking more questions in this part. So that is the reason you need to have more patience and intention to hear in this video tutorial. So this is the most important video tutorial of Core Java. I can say heart of the Core Java. So today we are going to cover what is OOPS and objects and classes and the object-oriented programming concepts like inheritance, aggregation, and abstraction, polymorphism, and encapsulation. These are all the high-level topics I will be listed over here. There are other topics I didn't mention here, so we can cover it through the slides, and we'll be coding accordingly. So the slides I'll be making, the reason is like for the readability, it will be easy, and once you see the slide, you can able to keep the things in your mind. Then the coding I'm doing it because practically how it actually does. So both are actually equally important, and coding is more important, so please try to concentrate on both. And this is a very important video. Again and again I'm telling, this helps you for the interviews, and this drives your interview well actually if you are good in this. So for that, first we can start with what is OOPS. OOPS is, the abbreviation will be object oriented programming. So object oriented programming system. So or you can say object oriented programming. uh, Object means real world entities such as I can say anything you can take, suppose any phone, chair, pen, table, or uh, telephone, computer, or watch, or anything is called as an object. So which is physically exists and you can able to touch it. That is called object. And object-oriented programming is actually very popular, um, because once actually in older days when you're developing any C programming, that time if you see, only they have to write it in single file, and there is no object-oriented concept over there, and there is no modularity. You could only to split the program into multiple parts, and the maintainability will be very difficult, and syntaxes you have to follow. uh, uh, Even here in Java also you have to follow the syntaxes, but they will be like difficult to remember those things and those programmatically keyboards and all, and that makes a lot of confusion to developers. So that is the reason those are all the critical programming languages, and Java comes easy because the way we are coding is easy, and also it is having the latest feature called object-oriented programming. So in object-oriented programming, we'll be covering the concepts like what is object, what is class, uh, what is inheritance and polymorphism, what types of polymorphism, and abstraction, and how to achieve abstraction, and encapsulation, how to do this. Apart from this, we'll be covering what is this keyword, and the static keyword, and super keyword, and different some other concepts also we need to cover up, along with the OOPS concepts, and you can go through one by one now. So first we can see objects and classes. So what is an object? Object is an entity, as we discussed. Each object there are two properties, one is state and behavior. So these two are common actually. Suppose if you are taking in this picture, if you take a bike, so what is the state and what is the behavior of the bike? State will be like the name. You can mention any name, like suppose this is a Royal Enfield bike, and the behavior will be, it will actually used for driving. And pen, if you take the name of the object is will be pen, and used for behavior will be for writing, it will be used. So it will have properties like name and write. Write is a method it will be having, name is a property it will be having. You can see what is the property and what is the method in coming coding video. And an object can be defined as instance of a class. So a object is actually comes from a class. Suppose there is a class is defined, from the class it is actually object is created. From one class we can have n number of objects will be created. Suppose if you have a pen as a name, suppose Reynolds, if you take Reynolds as a brand, so with the Reynolds brand we can have n number of pens, which is called Reynolds. We can call it as class, and which is physically not exist, and Reynolds pens are physically exist. So the all comes from the brand. Those are all called objects. So next we can see what is class actually, how it is. So collection of objects, as we are telling, right, the collection of objects will be created from class. So obviously the collection of objects will be called as class. It's not vice versa. Like few people answer me when I'm taking interviews, like what is a class? If I ask, I was telling collection of objects is a class. So then I asked what is an object. Then he was telling collection of classes is an object. So that way it's strong actually. So class is one from where we can able to create objects. It's a logically entity, so it will not physically exist actually, but the objects are physically exist. So from class we can able to create objects. From object we are not able to create classes. So class is the parent, you can say. So from the class only you can able to get the objects. And a class contains set of attributes which is called fields sorry, and methods and constructor and block and the nested classes and the interfaces. Sorry. So these are all the different types of different data types of fields it will be having, and methods it will be having, and constructors it will be having, and we'll actually put it together in a class, and we can write a sample class right now. And we can create an instance for that will call that as object. That will also we can see it in the program. So this is the typical class syntax. It looks like class space. Class is a small case here. It's not a capital at all. So class is a small, and class name, whatever the name you want, fields and methods. So first we can write a class over there, and the method you know of it, right? First we can see method, then we can implement all of them together, class and method and uh, object. So what is a method? So method in Java is a function which used to expose the behavior of an object. As I told, pen is an object. If you want to write a method for that, what is the method name will be write. So it will actually write. If it is a red pen, it will write it in red, and it is a black pen, it will write it in black color. So that the behavior of the object, that behavior we are exposing using methods actually. The purpose of using methods actually using code reusability and optimization. The purpose of reusability, suppose if I have a method called sum of two numbers, it will actually take two numbers, one is x and y. If you call a method, uh, suppose if this insert method we have here in the example, suppose if you consider as add method int x and int y, and the purpose of this method is to return the sum of the two elements, any two elements. So as much how you can call that method any n number of times, and you can pass the values and you can get the result. That is called code reusability. And you can have a block of code in a method, and you can use that method several times. And code optimization, you can able to optimize the code as much as possible, and for readability also it will be easy, for maintainability also it will be good actually. These are typical class we have here, so which is rectangle, and these are all called as properties, and this void insert is called as method, and this int L and int YW called as method parameters. And this is a void method. This is not taking any parameters, there is no parameters here, just printing some value. So this is about method. Now we can go and create a simple class, and we can create object for that, and we can see how it actually looks. So I'm going to the Eclipse, and the previous we covered control statement and loops. I'll be creating a new package on top of it, which is named as oops. That's it. It's an empty package, there is no classes defined here. So I'm just creating a new class named as sample class. Or we can name it as some purposefully, we can make it some mathematical class, or it will name it an addition or multiplication. We can put it as math, my math. We can put it as my math. It's a class name I'll be putting to actually do all the operations like addition, subtraction, and all it will do. So as I mentioned, the parent class will be object. So as part of oops, we'll be covering inheritance. We'll get to know what is superclass and all, and what is interfaces and all will comes into in this video itself. So I'm just creating my math class. The package I have defined as oops. Finish it. So I got my math class. So here I'll be creating another class which is having test my math. This is for testing main. This is for testing my math, and here I'll be adding main method. You can observe I haven't put main method in this class. It's just a class. It is about just having methods of addition, subtraction, and all. This is the test method, testing a math class, and it is about here itself we'll be creating objects and all. We'll come here later. First we can create methods over here. The variables I'll be declaring here, which is int x, int y, or int x equal to 10, int y equal to 20, public. I'm just declaring a method which contains the access specifier, which is public I'm mentioning. So the return type we have to mention, which is int, and method name add x and y, xy. I'm just giving empty, and I'm just returning. So what are the value we need to calculate, right? We just need to return that value. Then for that, just writing return x plus y. So that's it for this method. The purpose of this method, this is the class name. We will be declaring public class my math, and int x equal to 10, int y equal to 20, and public int is the return type. As it is a return type having, we must need to return some value. So the parameters is not taking anything because x and y is already available here, and it's just returning x and y. So this is about our basic class, and I'll be declaring one more method named as, later I'll discuss one more method. First, I'll call this x and y. To create this, to call this method, we have to create an object for myMath class. The way to do this is write myMath object name myMath obj, and we have to use a keyword called new. New is a keyword which is used to create an object for any class. So class name is myMath. So it's an empty parameter you have to give. That's it. This the single statement is used to create a class for myMath class. So now we have this class in hand with the object named as myMath object. So the next step is to call this method. What is actually add x and y. With the object name, we just need to call add xy. That's it. The so if you run this, you'll get nothing. So there's no output you'll be getting. The reason is just executed, it got succeed, and you're not getting any print any statement, right? Because you didn't printed anything. If you see properly, it is actually returning some integer. So for that, I'll be declaring return type. I'll be accepting that value. Whatever the value it is coming, I'll be accepting that value as result. So now I'll be printing that value. Clear? Now we are running this file. So now the expected will be like it is actually calling x and y, and this will go to add xy, and it will actually add x and y 10 plus 20, which is 30. This value will return for us. It will store in the result, and it is printing here. So we got 30. And if you're working in real-time applications, there will be very big codes will be there. Suppose if you want to go to the particular class, because here we will be having only two classes. If you're working in real-time application, there will be hundreds of classes, 1,000 classes will be there, and it is difficult to identify where the class is available and where this method is available. To get that using IDE, you can able to easy to navigate. The way to do this is click on press on control button, then put cursor on add xy, then it will give a hyperlink, then click on it. That's it. It will navigate to the class wherever it is. Suppose even if I close this class, I'm just having this class is opened, I just need to press on control plus click on this arrow, keep on pressing control button, and click on add. That's it. This will actually open the class, and this will actually point the method where it is actually available. So that is the way we can open a method. So now we got, come back to the results, we got the 30. So if I need to implement more methods in this, so there is a method which is public int add. So this time I will be taking dynamic parameters, which is int I, int j. These are the two dynamic parameters I'm taking. I'm returning I plus j. This is the typical method I have, which is actually taking, there's no difference between both of them, both are doing sum, but this method actually doing sum for these variables, existing variable, and this is actually doing sum for some dynamic variable, which is int. We don't know what int will be. The caller will decide what values will be. The caller is this one. So here I will be writing, so instead of calling add xy, I'll be calling here add. That's it. Here I'll be passing two parameters. I'll be passing 100, 200. So the output will be 300. I'll pass some random values. Some random values. So that method doesn't know what values I'm passing, and we'll see the output. So this is the output we got. 3, 5, 3, 4 is the sum of the objects. Or for for understanding, I'll be giving 200 and 100. If I run this, then it actually gives 300. So this time I'm not calling add xy, I'm just calling add I and j. So this is the way we can declare a class and properties with methods, and we can have other classes like other methods like subtraction and multiplication and all. You'll be having methods over here. Multiplication and all, you will be having methods over here, and n number of methods you can able to declare like this. So this is the way of creating a class. This is the way of declaring variables. So as I mentioned in the second video, so these are all called as instance variables. These are all called as method parameters, param variables, you can say. Method parameters. Inside methods, if you declare a variable called as parameters, properly called as method parameters. So these are caller method. Here I will be declaring a class name for creating an object using new keyword. I'm just creating an object. I'm just calling the methods out of it with the object. And if something needs to be passed, I'll be passing values for that and I'll be getting result. And this way we can create a class and an object, and methods and all we'll be using. This is the full-fledged class we have seen now. Full-fledged life cycle of the creating classes, objects and everything we have seen now. Now we can go to the next topic. Constructor. So what is the constructor? So just now we have created a class and methods and all. What is a constructor actually? The constructor is what will execute when the object is getting created. So there are two types of constructors are there, which is default constructor and parameterized constructor. I'll show it now. So these are method, these are class we have, and I'm just removing all this code, or I'll simply comment this code. I don't want to, I'm not calling any methods over here. I'm just initializing a class, and we'll see what will be the output. Nothing, I'm not getting anything because I'm not calling any method. I'm not printing anything, so I'm just needing calling this method. So the way to create constructor is having the same class name as a method, or we can declare here same class name as a method, and that's it. So as I mentioned here, so a special type of method which is used as initializing the object, and the constructor is a block of similar code similar to the method. It's actually similar to the method, but it's not the method actually. So it looks like method, but it's not like, it is not, it should not, you cannot write any return statement for this actually. You cannot, it is not at all allowed. If you write anything, it will actually become as method. It won't be called as constructor. It is again a method. You can have a method name with the class name also, nothing will happen. And it is actually, if you write a return type, that will behave as a method. It won't be constructor. If you need a constructor, nothing, no return type you need to write. Constructor, I'm just writing this out. Constructor is executed. That's it. We'll see when actually this this will get called, and do we need to call specifically or not. We'll see that. I'm just here, I'm just creating object for that class. Now I'm running this code. See, now constructor code is executed. The reason is if whenever you call new keyword with the my class constructor, then by default this will be triggered. This will be triggered. You don't need to explicitly call. Whenever you're just creating an instance for this class, by default the constructor will be called. whatever the code you have written inside constructor, uh, this will be executed. Usually how people will do is like when the class, suppose DB connection class people are creating, they'll actually do like some people will do like they'll be initializing some database properties and all inside constructor before getting calling methods like getting reading data from the tables and all, and they're actually doing initialization part they'll be doing in construction. It is actually constructing objects, so that is the reason it is actually called as constructor. So in initialization people will do in construction, sorry, constructor. So init and all they'll do it in constructor, that is the reason it is called a constructor. So constructing an object, and as we discussed, there are two types of constructor we have. One is default constructor and parameterized constructor. What is parameterized constructor? So param you remember, right, at the keyboard, these are called as method parameters. So the same way, if I have for constructor, if I have parameters, that is called as parameterized constructor. I'll pass int or string, I'll pass name, and here I'll printing hello name. We'll see the difference. So I'm just created constructor with the parameter which is called as parameterized constructor. You can have a number of variables, suppose int age, different type of constructors you can have, parameters you can able to have, and name you can put here, and sorry guys. So here we'll be writing name and age, we both are passing through the constructor parameters, and this is the parameterized constructor. So this is the parameterized constructor, and this is default constructor. Default, I'll tell you, even if you don't declare any constructor, by default system will generate my math. So this constructor will be generated automatically. Internally it will create, but it won't appear. It won't appear any for each and every class. It will actually create a default constructor like this, because these already existed, so it is actually showing error. By default it will create. Suppose for the previous classes, if you see in other classes, suppose, or any class, if you take for do while loop, we haven't created any constructor over here. What it do is compiler actually creates default constructor for this, and this will keep it as it is. So this will call as super, also it will call. This will be the default code which is created by the compiler. I'll tell you super in this video tutorial itself. What is super it is. And this is the default code. It is generated using compiler actually, even if you don't declare any constructor. We're just overriding, instead of compiler creating, we're just creating, and we are giving our own functionality here. And these extension for the constructor, we are giving parameterized constructor. So the way to call this is, if you call this way, it will actually runs only the default constructor. Depends on, because you are not passing any value, so it is calling the default constructor, which is this. So if you need to call this, then you need to pass two attributes for the same line. One is James, which is 20. So if you just control, if you press and if you redirect right, it will actually navigate to the right constructor. with the parameterized constructor. I'm just running this class. We'll see the output will be parameter constructor result, which is this method. Not a method, sorry, parameterized constructor. So which is string name it is taking, age it is taking, it is printing both the values. So this is what difference between constructor and parameterized constructor. There are two types of constructors that are available in Java, either default or parameterized. You can have n number of constructors, not only two. You can have n number. There is no limit for constructor. You can have different attributes. What else a person will have? Name, age, and height. You can take some number. So any property. So this is not showing any compilation error. See, if you pass additional parameter, then the way to call this constructor is need to pass additional parameter when you are initializing an object. That simple it is. So that's about constructor. We'll see what's the next topic is. Static keyword. Static keyword is actually used for memory management. It's like as if you declare any, there will be different scopes we can able to declare static. One is variable level and method level, and variable is nothing but instance variables, and methods and blocks. Static block you can able to create. The advantage is like suppose if you have a college application if you're writing, and there are students are available. Suppose every time for each student you need to use college name. For the same name it will be there, right? Suppose if one college there are 100 students are there, for 100 students you will be referring the college name. So college name every student class you don't need to mention college name every time. So you just need to have one so because every time when you declare memory allocation also will happen every time. You just need to have one variable which is static, that will actually allocates only once. For static data type, whatever variable or method or block, whatever it is, what the memory allocation only happens once per time, per JVM. So once you declare a variable as static, the memory allocation will happen once. So for college name here, if you declare a static variable, then all the students you can able to access with the same memory location. So there is no multiple memory allocations created for 100 students actually. You can code it right now, how it actually looks. Just creating a new class to make it clear. Static demo. So this is a class we have, and int x equal to 10. This is a normal variable. Static int y equal to 20, and method I'll be writing main. That's it. Here I'll be creating student demo object. We know how to create an object. And I will be calling obj dot x equal to 10. Sorry, I just need to print that value just now. Which is x is what? Obj dot x. The same way I'll write it for y. I'll tell you where this scenario will come, how static will differ. So I'll be running this program. The expected result will be x is 10 and y is 20. Now what I'm doing is I'm just changing this value. So I'm assigning x is equal to, I'm creating one more object. Instead of that, I'll do this way. I'm just copying whole thing and I'm just writing one more object, which is object 2, and I'll be printing object 2 values here. So two objects I have created for the same class and I'll be printing those values, and the output will be, I can mention obj2 to make it clear. So this is about obj. This one I'll make it as object 1. So there are two objects I have created for the same class, and I'll be printing the values. We'll see the output first and see, and I'll be putting some sys out over here for differentiating. That will be fine, I think. So these about the first object and these about second object. Now what I'm doing is I'll be modifying these values once object is created. Here I'll be modifying, once object is created, I'll be modifying those values. X is equal to 20. I'll be changing x to 100, y to 200. So what will be the output? Once I'm changing it, here it will be 100 to 100, and here what it will be printed, we'll see it. Object 1, it is printed properly, 100 and 200. For object 2, if you see, it is not printing the old values, it's not even printing the new values. It is actually printing mix of the both values. The reason is, the second value particularly they have mentioned as static. So whatever the place you change with the object 1, if you are changing to 200, for the y it is actually applies to here itself. For the object 1, x you are changing, right? It is not a static, it is actually applied within this object only. Nothing, it won't go out of the scope. But this y value, it will actually go out of the scope, and it will actually only one memory allocation will happen. For this one, changes globally. Even if you create object 3 also, it will actually display. Object 3 also if you create, that will actually display. For 2 it will be 100 only, 200 only. You can check it right now. This also changes for readability. See, object 3 also it is giving 200, object 2 also 200. So these actually changes only if you set it within that object scope. So that's the difference. So static variable will never change, only once its memory allocation got created, or if you change the value, then it will be applicable for all the objects. How many objects will be creating, all the objects it will be reflected. Got it? That's about static keyboard within variable scope. And method scope we have already seen, like for main method we have used, and for same we can do it here. So now I remove this code, it is not much necessary. So method public int, add some numbers, int I comma int j. If I add it, I'll tell you the difference. What is the benefit of having a static method here? I plus j. So here I'll be having static method, or I can do the same thing here. I don't need to write a new method over here. I'm already holding those methods over there. I'll go there. My math, I'll be having methods, and test my math is a class. So what I'm doing is here, if I need to add some numbers, I'm just creating a method, then I'm actually calling a method called, is the class or what? Yep, this is the class. And I'm just, after creating object only, I'm just calling the add methods, right? What I'll do is, I'll go for static default constructor. Now I don't want anything. So what I'm doing is, I'm just creating object for that, then only I'm calling the main method. Then I'm getting the expected result. See, constructor default is executed because it's default, and we got 300. If we give 50, so it will actually, I'm just checking whether this is working or not. So it is actually working. 250 it is working. So to call this method, I'm doing creating an object and calling a method. These many things I'm doing. What I'll do now is, with the static, I'll make this method as static by adding a keyword called static. That's it. For any method you can able to add it. I'm just adding a static keyword for this method. Then I'll go back to this class. Then I'll be removing this object. I don't want this object, and instead of this I just mention the class name. What is the class name? See, now it is not showing any error because it's a static method. You don't need to create an instance for calling a method within a whatever the class it is having the static method. You can directly call class name dot static method name with the parameters, applicable parameters. So if you control and navigate there, it will actually pointing. Because of the static, you don't need to create instance for that. And the memory allocation for this method also happen only once. Like how instance variable it happen only once, and we'll see. We'll change the output here, 60 to 60. 60 I'm passing. We'll see the output here. What will be the output now? So it got updated. It's giving 120. And you remember the previous the constructor got executed. Now the constructor is also not executed. Only once you're creating object, the constructor will execute. Now it's not even executed. Directly calls the method because it's a static. It doesn't create any object or it doesn't call any constructor. So it directly calls that method, and we got the output. So these are major benefit of having the static methods. Usually in real time, people will do database creation. They will actually have some static methods or something. Singleton they'll use. That's a different concept. I'll explain you later. But instead of singleton, if you want to achieve through static, you can able to do that. Only one time if you want to create instance, then you can go with the static and you can able to access it. So that way it will be helpful. This is about static keyword. So static block we need to write. What is the static block? Static block is nothing but writing static keyword. Within that you just need to write that's it. Just need to run the code on a static block. So when this will get executed, I didn't even call this one anywhere, and I just created a static block. I just executed. When this will got executed, when the class is loading itself, when the time it's loading the class itself, you can see before calling main method, this got executed. Not only this here, you can place it in the bottom also. The functionality will be same. There's no difference at all. So I'm just putting in the bottom for your sake. Now as you can see, it will execute in the same. Where you put the statement, that will execute in the same. Because the static is a priority when the compiler actually class loader is looking into. When the JVM class loader is looking into, first time it will actually look for static blocks, then static variables, static methods. Later it will comes to instance variables and all, object creations and all. The first preference will be static. because it's a per class one time memory allocation will happen and it will be used everywhere. So that is the reason it happens once and it's prioritized, and it is the first time the memory allocation will happen. That is the reason it is printing first for us. So this is about static. The next topic is about this keyword. What is this? This is about, this is nothing about this. This is nothing about this. So if you're creating any object for any class, and within that object, if you're wishing to call any method, that is called uh, you by default the compiler will use to call this method. Actually, I'll tell this way. So if you need to print this value, suppose if you need to print this value, what you will do after constructor got executed, you will need to print this value. What you will do, x is x, suppose. So I'll be creating a class again here. Let's need to comment. I'm just creating a constructor, default constructor. Using new keyword. So I'm just running this. So this is, I'm just commenting this code as well. Static block also I don't need now. I'm just running this code. It will actually print constructor is executed and x is 10. So instead of x is 10, what I'm doing is this start x I'm using. This means this particular object x value I'm looking. So I'm just running this file again. So just printing 10. What it means is, by default, if you don't mention this also, compiler automatically adds this keyword prior to x actually. So it will actually looks like this. If you see inside of compiler, then it actually works like this. The JVM adds this keyword prior to the x. And not only this is actually applied for property. The same way, if you need to call any method, suppose inside xy, if I need to add xy if they are calling, so inside that, instead of returning simply x and y, if I need to call this method to make sure this to be returned, I'll be using return add of x comma y. I'll be reusing this method actually. I'm just calling this, or I can make it simple for you. Int result, and sorry, I'll be returning result for you. And so I'll be, there's nothing much I'm doing. I'm just taking this 10 and 20 here. I'm just passing to this method. I'm reusing this method and I'm just calling it. In here with the object, I'll be calling object x and y. obj dot add xy. Add xy I'm printing, and I'm printing what is the result. So I'm just running, the expected will be 30, which came here, and to do this, for now I'll comment this code to make the current discussion to be clear. So we have tested this for variable level, and now we are testing for method level, and I'm just printing this as 30. It came. This is doing it is calling add method inside the add method. Instead of directly calling this, you can able to mention this dot add. That's it. Again, you've been able to call the same method will actually return 30. Same thing. There's no difference between the output. So we have covered the way to call the variable with this or without this, which functions same, and the way to call the method this dot add or without this dot add, which will function same. So that's the difference between both of them. And these were the usage things you need to take care. This can be used to refer current class instance variables and use the current class method, which we already tested, and this can be used to invoke the current class constructor as well. Suppose if you want to invoke the constructor in anywhere, you can simply call, suppose in this class parameter constructor, if you want to initialize this parent constructor, the way to do this is, that's it. This will actually, if even if you call parameter constructor, this will actually initialize the non-parameter constructor. This will actually print this statement. So this is the way, but make sure that it has to be first statement in the code. Within the code, it has to be first statement. In later we will be discussing about super. That is also be first statement in the code if you are overriding that. And this can be passed an argument for the method calls. Even you can able to pass the argument as a this keyword. Suppose for method to method you can able to pass, or constructor to constructor you can able to pass. Suppose for this one you can mention the same data type you can mention, and here you can pass it as this. You can able to pass it. There's no, so same object you can able to pass it. With this object you can able to read the properties x and y, you can directly read it. So that's the other way you can do it. And this can be used to return the current class instance from the method. From the method also you can able to return, you can create a method which returns this keyword that actually looks return me. It's me, just return me. So return this. That's it. This shell actually returns the current instance of object. This is a way of returning this as a method level. So that's about this keyword. Then go to the next topic, which is inheritance in Java, which is very much important topic in core Java. OOPS concept, inheritance. What is inheritance? Inheritance is about suppose your father is there. So your father is having one hotel and one theater, and these two your father is holding with him, and the next generation you will be there, and you will be having a bike with you, so which is yours actually. And so if the outsider can see you how it looks like, you will be having, even your father is having properties like theater or hotel, and you having a bike alone. So how it comes like, battery is down, it's okay. How it comes like, you will be having bike, hotel and theater. So whatever your father is having, it is also belongs to you. So the child is also having three properties. The father is having two properties, and you especially having bike. So the overall you will be having three properties. Your father says two properties and yours is one property. That is called parent child. So your parent is your father and you are the child. So the same terminology will be using in Java inheritance concept as well. And parent-child relationship will be there. That is called as is a relationship. So there are different types of inheritance we have. We can see it one by one. So as I mentioned, inheritance is a mechanism in which one object acquires all the properties of behaviors of a parent object. It's an important OOPS concept. Inheritance is a relationship. Is a relationship. You and your father is having a relationship. Is a relationship, and that's a parent, or we can known as parent-child relationship. It's a regular word. It's not very much programming specific terminology. So the terms actually used here is superclass and parent class. Superclass or parent class. The parent class known as superclass we can call. The subclass or child class. Either way you can call it. Even in the interviews, you can able to mention any name, either name. Parent child if you are comfortable, you can able to tell that, or superclass subclass name if you are comfortable, then you can tell that. There's no issues. And if you see the concept, if you see the syntax here, right? Um, First we're declaring class and subclass name extends the superclass. So the superclass already there, father. This I can say class son extends father. So whatever father is having, all of them, the son will get it. That's about this. And there are different types of inheritance we have: single inheritance and multi-level inheritance and hierarchical inheritance. These are the different types of inheritance we have. First we can code for the basic inheritance, how actually we can do it. Inheritance will be fine. All three of them I need to create. For now we can go with the basic thing. Inheritance demo. So the parent class will be, so as I now you can understand what is parent class. So superclass is nothing but the parent class. For all the classes in Java, the default parent class will be object, which is not visible there, but you can see it in Eclipse IDE now. So object will be the parent class for all the classes what you have. That's a object is a parent class for all of them. So these are class. So before that, I'll be creating. I'll have a separate package for that inheritance. That will be clear. I'll move this demo to here. This is the way we can directly drag and drop. Nothing will impact. Close this oops. Within the oops, I'll be having inheritance, and here we'll be having to make this view clear, right? You can able to do this way. There is a arrow, and you can give package presentation as hierarchical. That means what is the root package and the child package, everything clear. This is a shortcut. Go here, package presentation, and put hierarchy. That gives you detailed view properly. So now you can see oops are there. Inheritance is part of the oops. So here I will be creating one parent class. Class name is parent. And child class as child. So if you see for parent and both, for all of them, it is object to the default parent. That's a default. That cannot be changed. So that's a demo. I'll be use it for test the both of them. So this is the parent. The parent is having string hotel. Maybe your father is rich, then hotel. Now hotel is father having, and get car. So your father is also having a car with him. The car will be bench car. So your father is having one hotel and bench car your father is having. So these are all the two things your father is having. One is hotel and car in this way. When I put it in variable to demonstration purpose, I put the car in method level. So we can create a child class. So a child is nothing but a parent whose parent is parent class. So I'll be putting extends. It's a keyword used in Java to make inheritance. So parent is a class. So extends parents. Who where it comes from your parent. So parent child extends parent. So you will be having string bike. Suppose pulsar you will be having. This is it. String you will be having a what else you will be having other than bike. You will be having a maybe smartphone or iPhone. iPhone you'll be having. So I get phone you can tell. Description I can return as iPhone X. So you are the richest family then. We're having all of these. And this is how it is. And this is the parent your father is having hotel and a bench car, and you will be having Pulsar and iPhone X. What I'm telling is your father is having only hotel and bench car, but you will be having Pulsar and iPhone X along with your father properties, because your father properties also belongs to you, so you'll be having four properties. And the way to demonstrate that, what I'm doing is just creating object for child. Okay, I'm just trying to print what and all properties you will be having in this way. I'll put these statements in main method. So child properties, I'll be listing here what and all you have. So what else you have? Child object dot bike you have. It's a bike name, it will be printed. And child object dot get phone. We'll be having these two properties, right? We'll execute. Because I just created object for child, I'm just printing child properties, pulsar bike and iPhone X is your properties. As I mentioned, your father properties also belongs to you. As you're extending your parent class, then we can see try to access your father properties with the same child object dot hotel, which is not your property, which is not there in child property, but it is there in parent property. I'm trying to access this. We'll see what it will print. Dot get car. That's it. So if these two got printed, then these properties also belongs to you. And we can see it here. See, these are all your properties. These are all child properties, not father properties. Okay. Suppose to prove that, I'll have parent class, because your properties are not belongs to your parent. New parent. I'm just trying to print vice versa. You access to your father properties, right? Your father, how he can able to access your properties. I'm just checking. Here also I'm right. parent properties. For separation, I'll write a statement. For separation, I'm just writing this, and here I'll be printing if all the properties. Dot hotel, it's his property. I'm just printing get car, its property, and this is known as this is known thing. Like you'll be having your father is having now hotel and bench car. Now he will try to access your Pulsar and iPhone X. We'll see that. Dot, what is that? Bike. There's no property is listed. When if you write, it will throw error. There's no property listed. I'll try to access your bike as well. Get bike. Correct. Now get bike, get phone, right? So this I wrote. I'm just running this, but it will throw error because it is showing here itself. It is telling clearly bike cannot be resolved or not a field as part of parent class. And same for get method undefined for type parent. So your father is not able to access your properties, but you can able to access your father properties. These are relationship between parent and child, and these are basic inheritance concept. Hope you got the topic. And so there are three types of inheritance that are possible. Suppose A to B, which is I can say A is the parent and B is the child, and this is multi-level A, B, C means parent. Suppose you can take grandfather, father, and child, and here I can say hierarchical father and two kids. If two kids are there, they can get those properties actually. If two kids are there, two kids will get the properties. That's it. And the other type which are not allowed in Java particularly using classes, those are multiple properties. This I cannot tell in false example, beat me that way. And suppose if there are two parent classes, if one child class, if from two parent classes, it is actually there is a confusion will happen. This concept I'll explain you when in interfaces topic again. Through interfaces we can able to achieve this, but through classes it is not possible. So these two are not possible, and these three are the possible inheritance types. You can remember and you can tell it in interview. Same single inheritance, multi-level and hierarchical are possible in Java, and multiple and hybrid are not possible. So these are the supported and unsupported inheritances in Java. Next, super keyword. What is the super keyword? The super keyword is about, as I mentioned, the parent class. If your constructor, if you're supposed to call, that is, you can use it as super keyword, and this parent properties, if you want to refer, then you can call it as super keyword. I'll explain in this example itself. Suppose a parent is having constructor saying this is a parent calls parent classes constructor. I'll copy it for fast typing. This is a child class constructor. So these I have created constructor for both of you. It's a parent I created constructor, and for your child for you I created a constructor. Now I can test with super keyword. With the child object I'll call, or from here I'll just comment this code for now because parent I'll be commenting because I need to call his properties only. Child I'll keep it as it is, and just run the output for now. It will be the output, we'll see it. So it is calling parent constructor and child constructor. See, I haven't mentioned anything, I haven't called anywhere new parent and all. I haven't called, I just called child constructor. Child constructor is calling because I created object for that. That is meaningful. And parent constructor I haven't called. The reason is by default by the compiler it will inject super. This will actually trigger the parent constructor by default because earlier we didn't mention here, so nothing message will printed. Now we have added a constructor over here. By default constructor will add this line, then it will print the content in the parent constructor. Now we can run this. Again the output will be same. Even if you mention or if you don't mention super keyword within child class constructor, then the result will be same. Parent constructor, child constructor. So this is about super keyword. You can able to point super dot these properties also. You can able to point super dot hotel super dot something. Suppose in here super hotel. If you're calling this with the super hotel, that's it. So we'll be getting super hotel here. We're trying to access super hotel. We'll see this. You got super hotel with the super keyword. You can able to call the constructor, or you can able to get the property also. So this is about super keyword. We can use it in Java classes. This is helpful only in the inheritance way. Aggregation. What is aggregation? Aggregation is nothing but this having easier relationship. As we discussed, this is about easier relationship. Suppose always every time you don't need to have child and parent relationship for all the Java classes what you have. Suppose if you take the example as student and address, and student might have or might one address or might have more than one address also. And for creating student class, it is not mandate to have address details because some forms might need required address details, some forms might not require address details. So in such cases, it is optional to have address. In suppose if I am taking Aadhaar card application, their address details are required actually. If I'm taking simply for bus pass or something, so their address details are not required, where you're actually staying and all. So these kind of scenarios, address is required or not required, for that is kind of optional. If you make it parent-child relationship like this, so it has to invoke those address object every time, and it is actually unnecessary for lot of cases and required for few cases. For that scenario, we'll be using aggregation. So as inheritance is called as easier relationship, aggregation is called as has a relationship. So the way to declare aggregation is just creating a new class for that. The same example what we discussed. I'm putting aggregation as package name, and I'll be giving student class and address class. So what address details will have? It is simply having int plot number, string, street name, and all it will be having. The student will have ID, name, age. Along with that, you need to have address details. Instead of extending address, what I'm trying to do is I'll be adding as a property. So this is called as aggregation. If you have the other class as an attribute, like how other attributes is having, it is optional to pass, or if required it is passed. If it is not required, we don't need to pass this. But in case of inheritance, we need to have both the properties. If you in inheritance concept, if a child is there, so if he is using the parent properties or not, it is actually comes to him, and it is available for him actually. If he is using or not, all these properties are available for him. But here in student case, until unless if you assign, suppose if you are taking any main class for this, so suppose if you are taking main class, I'm just creating object for student. I'm just creating student object. For student, I'll be setting values as age, id equal to 1, name equal to James, age equal to 22. So sys out st, if I put, that object will return. So it is not readable. For that, what I'm doing is I'll do override toString. Just overriding toString, which is from object class. Here I'm writing ID. So here I'll be using our this start ID. We already covered what is this and all. Name, and what is that? Age. Next, address. Okay, address out of it I'll mention as address. That's it. Now I'll execute the same class. We'll see the result now. Test aggregation. I'll just writing same class. Now the details are a little bit clear. So address is null. For this object, ID is 1, name is James, and age is 22, and address is null because I'm not setting here. Suppose if I want to set it here, then what I'll do is I'll be having address is created, start plot number equal to 22 or 11, street name equal to something called high city, something I have given, and for st I'm setting address as edit here. That's it. If I print here, I have set address value for one case. For now it's null for previous results. For now we can check what will be the result for this. It will be not null. So it is a value contains. If you go deeper into this, right? Suppose if you print into string at the start, what is that street name? We can print it here. So then it will actually print address as well, along with student details, and address is high-tech city. So these are it will print. So this is about aggregation. The way to do this is having two individual bean and using the trust bean wherever is required. It's called aggregation. It's a has a relationship, and inheritance is a relationship, parent-child relationship. That's about aggregation. So abstraction. What is abstraction? Let me charge my battery. It might get down. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much, guys. I just put my charger now. Let's to put it. So the next topic we're going to discuss about is abstraction. So what is abstraction actually? It means that uh, hiding some internal details and showing the functionality to the end user. Suppose if you're making a call to any other person, so you don't know what exactly happening in the mobile, like how it is actually call is going to other person, what and all operation happening in your mobile. These are not, you don't know, you just dialing a number, and it is directly, you're directly talking to the person for the opposite person. So that's one example you can say for abstraction, which is we don't know what internally happened, but we know the output, what it is. And the other example will be like there is a car, and you're just using the car, and you're just driving the car. So it is driving. You don't know what exactly the engine actually doing, and what and all, how it is fuel it is taking, and how all other uh, instruments are interacting with each other, and how it is interacting with tires, and how it is moving and all. We don't need to bother about all the things. I mean, we just need the functionality. If it is a car, we just starting the car and we just driving. That's it. As simple as that. We don't need to bother about other functionalities. This is called as abstraction, hiding the internal details and showing the output to the user. That is called as abstraction. So abstraction in Java particularly. So here it is mentioned as hiding the implementation details and showing only the functionality to the user. So whatever code we are writing, end user will not know what code we have written. He will directly enjoy the excellent UI. Whatever we have provided, he will actually enjoy that UI. He will be able to use that application. And he don't know what kind of framework we have used, and what kind of code we have written, and what kind of logic we have written. He doesn't need to aware, and he don't need to want to look into that. So that's called abstraction in a programmatic way. In Java, we can achieve two ways actually abstraction. One is using abstraction classes and interfaces. Abstract classes is similar to classes which prefixed as abstract keyword. Nothing much difference. And interfaces are different kind. Those we can discuss right now. What interfaces and all. And achieving abstraction through abstract classes 0 to 100%. So it's not 100% we can able to achieve, because abstract classes will have abstract methods. I'll show you how abstract methods and all. And so for both of them, for abstract classes and interfaces, we are not able to create objects actually. So like how normal class is allowing to create objects, and we using new operator. With the abstract classes and interface, it is not allowed to create a instance for that. So these are typical example. A class which is declared a class keyword as abstract class, it can have abstract and non-abstract methods. So these abstract method, even if there are 10 methods listed in the class and only one method is abstract keyword is added, so that class itself become as abstract class. So I'll code it for you, like how before going to interfaces, first we can discuss abstract classes, how actually we can code it. then oops, I will be creating class as what class we can able to create, which is about some DB connection. You can say this abstract class I'm going to create here, and I need to change the package. For that I will be creating a new package. For that it will be clear to present. There I will be moving this DB connection object. So this same example you can explain to your interviewers when you attend the interview. That is abstract class, and for testing I will be creating one main class. So this will have main method along with this. So as it is an abstract class, I will be renaming it as abstract. So that will be clear for us. So we have so these abstract class and these are main class. Main class we can see it later. And here I'll be mentioning there is a one method I'll be declaring, which is for now I'll be returning string. I'm just returning Oracle DB or any DB. You can, if you want, you can put any DB. So there is other method I'm declaring, public get emp employees. So this one I'm not going to put any implementation here. I'll be putting as a list of, or I can put employee name, I can put, or simply. So here I'm putting string. It is also string, and here I won't provide any implementation. I'll just keep it as this, and it will throw error because abstract I need to add. I'll add abstract keyword, and it is showing C here, whatever it shows. Must be abstract class define abstract class methods. So either we need to implement this method or we need to have abstract keyword for class level. This is the standard error we will be getting, and once you declare it, all the errors are gone. So this is the way you have to create abstract class. You can see right at the difference. Suppose if you didn't mention anything for the class, and if you declare one abstract class, one is implemented already, one is not implemented, you just put abstract and it is showing error saying either you need to implement that method or declare the class as abstract. So as it is abstract for our example, so I'm just making this as abstract. And now I'll try to create this object instance, and I'll try to call the method using testDB connection. dbc equal to new abstract class. What is the method? Not the method. Before that it is showing error saying cannot instantiate the type DB connection abstract because we cannot able to instantiate, we cannot able to create an object for any abstract class. That is what I mentioned in the slide. It is not at all allowed to create a instance for any abstract type of class. So The way to do this is we need to create a class which is either we need to implement this method and we have to remove abstract all the ways, then this class object will be created. As this is already abstract, so we don't want to change this. Suppose what this way I can even tell it in interviews and all. Abstract classes are actually used for creating partial implementation, and the rest of the implementation will take care of new classes like this. IMPL I'll take. So in IMPL what I'll do is extends abstract. So this class I'm extending, and I'll be doing implementation. If you click on error, it will suggest add unimplemented methods. This is what you have to do. Either you have to do unimplemented implementation, or you need to change this one also abstract. So that is not good for now. You can implement unimplemented method. It comes by default. See, get employee name. So we have to implement, or else this will also become abstract class again. So for that I'll be declaring this method with this name. Now you don't need to create instance for this still, even if you have the implementation, but you can have reference variable for this one, and you can have implementation object. Means this keep it as first. So the reference variable you can able to keep it, but not the implementation. For the implementation, this is not abstract class which extends the abstract class. It is implemented all implemented methods. Then it is allowed to create object for that, and now you can able to call all the methods what are possible. Get db connection, or we can put it in sysout because those are returning strings, so we can put it in sysouts. Get db connection, you can able to print it, and get employee name also you can able to print it. We'll see the results now. See, Oracle DB and JSON, you got it. So this is a way of declaring abstract classes. And suppose if you unimplemented this method, suppose James also you haven't implemented, and what will happen is you need to declare this is one also abstract. Then this errors will go, but this implementation will not happen. This will not allow to create an object. Again you need to create a new class. Again you need to extend this class, and there at least you need to provide implementation for this. Until unless you have this implementation, nothing will happen. So for that I'm doing here itself. Everything gone. These are abstract classes in Java. So either you can have here in this class, it is having partial implementation. Few of the methods got implemented, few of them are not implemented. So these about abstract classes. And next topic will be interface. What is interface? An interface, so that is the reason they have mentioned the abstraction we can able to achieve 0 to 100%, not the fully. So partial implementation is possible, but that is the reason it's a 0 to 100%. But in the interfaces we can able to achieve 100% abstraction. This kind of blueprint of class. Suppose we have object blueprint is class, right? For class blueprint is interface, you can say. This is the standard way of developing in everywhere. Suppose if you are developing any web service, so interfaces are mandated to use it, because the clients are integrated your web services. They don't want to affect anything. So for that reason we'll be using interfaces. Maybe it is very high level if I'm explaining web services concept here, but a brief I'm giving. Interfaces are standard. They have to implement, they have to write interfaces for when you're writing any web services or something to achieve the full abstraction. another partial abstraction, full abstraction. So it has static constants and abstract methods. So all the methods within interface are by default abstract methods. In abstract classes, we declared few methods are abstract, but interfaces, all the methods by default abstract actually. And the variables, the fields, whatever you declare, suppose you can have TP fields in abstract classes, you can have any variables, x equal to 10 or something. You can have any number of variables, there's no issues at all. Everything you'll be able to do whatever you're doing in normal class. In interfaces, you can able to declare variables and methods as well, but not the implementations. All the methods are by default abstract. I'll show you how to create a interface now. Instead of choosing class, you have to choose interface here. The package, I'll be giving what I can say, student interface. The syntax will be, instead of class, it is having interface keyword. Instead of public class, it is having interface keyword. That's a major difference. And I can have int x equal to 10 variables over here, 20, and public static void. I'm writing main method. Public void get student name. So these is about, see here it's not asking for, I haven't provided implementation, but it's not asking for abstract, like how abstract method is forced me to put abstract keyword. Here it is not asking, and here also I haven't put any abstract keyword. These functionality of interface, and by default these are all static final. By default with the compiler it will add a static and final. Final means it will never change. By default all the methods are abstract. Even if you mention it or if you don't mention it, by default this is the nature for interfaces. All the fields and the interfaces are public static finalities, and abstract methods are all are public and abstract by default. So this is the interfaces you have to use, and the way to create instance for this is just creating a class for that to test the interface. The way to use this interface is you have to, this is the parent you have to use, and parent-child relationship you have to maintain. Extends if you put, then it will show error, because for class you cannot put extend. Class to class you can put extends, but class to interface you have to put implements. So this is the way you have to do. If you put implements, it is showing some suggestions, add unimplemented methods. Then you have to implement that student name, whatever it is there, you have to implement that method. And main method you can have it. As I mentioned, this interface method you can, attribute you can able to directly access. There is an attribute you have, which is, you don't need to mention all public static final and all, you just need to mention x. Directly you can call it as x. You just need to try to print this value, what it will print. It is printing 20. I haven't created any object for this or anything, so these are all by default accessible, because this will come by default public static final. These methods are by default abstract. Even I haven't mentioned abstract here, it is actually forced me to implement. If I remove this method here again, it is actually throw error saying add an implemented methods. That is the error it will show. So this is about interfaces. That is the reason we are achieving 100% abstraction using interfaces. Polymorphism. Polymorphism is a very important object-oriented feature, which is talks about uh, using one code for multiple times. Suppose if you run one code, one type of code, you can able to use it multiple times in different ways. Uh, there are two types of polymorphism is available. One is compile time polymorphism and runtime polymorphism. So to get to understand more what is compile time and runtime polymorphism, we have ways to explain it. One is method overloading and method overriding. Method overloading comes like if you have same method with a different properties or types of properties or number of properties. I'll explain you in a coding how it is actually. That called method overloading, and method overriding is comes under inheritance concept. Only parent-child relationship, the method overriding will comes to the picture. So method overloading, we'll see that how it is. The class has multiple methods with the same name but the different parameters. It's known as method overloading. Method overloading increases readability of the program. Different ways of overloading methods by changing the number of arguments or by changing the data type. Suppose if you are implementing just putting poly for polymorphism, just creating a class where I'll putting my math again. Here what I'm doing is I'm just declaring methods like public add int x into y. This is the one method where I can return. I need to mention return type prior to this. X plus y. So this is the one method I have, and the another method I will be declaring public double add, or you can put to make you better understanding float. I'll put float x, or you can put a float, you can put xy also, there's no issues to make you some difference. So I'm just adding here, or xy, I'll put it as everything has to be same other than the data type, so you can better remember the concept. X plus y. So if you see this class, there are two methods are there. One is having add, another one is having add with the same name with two different data types. Even not only we don't need to have two different data types with the same data type, I'll be having one more method called add. What I will be doing is int z I will be putting. So there are three attributes, there are three methods are available with the same name. Add, one is taking two parameters with the int, and one is taking two parameters with the float, one is taking three parameters with the int. So there are three different methods. I will be writing main method for this, and I will be calling these methods. We'll see how it works. And I'll show you the naming conventions now. The way to declare an object instead of obj, it's good to have a name like this. That's recommended to create in real time. Dot. See, if you see, suppose before printing this, I'll do one thing. or I'll directly print it. Dot add, if I'm trying to add, it is suggesting which one you want to call, either int add method or float add method or 3-parameter int add method. So you can choose any method. So depends on that particular method will respond. Suppose 2 parameters int and float are there, by default automatically it will pick which corresponding method it will execute actually. So the expected will be, and I'll put some message here so that you can better understanding. Int add float add. These are how we don't need to mention anything. 3 parameters if you pass, that will be unique thing. So now you can see int add will be triggered. Int add is triggered by dynamically choosing the data type whatever you're passing. If you pass 10.5 something, 20.6, both the float values, by default see how it actually picks up. Need to mention it. For the floating point. So now you can see float add is called, and it with some addition will be getting, and 3 parameters you don't need to test it. It will actually gives right results as expected. 1 2 3 if I give 1 4 2 4 if I give, it is actually returning expected results. Plus y plus z output. So this is returning expected result. This is called as method overloading. This is called as reusing the same method with the different names, with the same name and the different types of parameters. Here the number of parameters might change or type of the parameters might change. So method name will be the same. This is called as polymorphism. One type of polymorphism with this method loading, method overloading, we can test it. The other way we can test it as method overriding. Method overriding, we can take this interface concept already, which is interfaces, not interfaces, inheritance concept already available. We can take those classes and we can test it here itself. So suppose if you have parent class and if you want to override, suppose your father bought bench car, later you bought Audi, so you want to override that with your parent class. What is the you just need to copy the class and paste it here. You just need to use the same implementation and put Audi car. That's it. Now your inheritance system is ready. Then you just run application. So you'll be getting Audi car. If you didn't override, so with the same signature, there's no difference at all. I just copied a whole the thing. I just pasted here, and you can able to, for compiler suggestion, you can put override. You can put this keyword here. That makes a lot of sense here. So just overriding the parent class method, the same signature, and the value are changing it. So you'll be getting, when you're calling this method, and you'll be getting updated data. Is called as method overriding. So this is about method overloading and overriding we covered already. Like it's a parent-child relationship we need to have, is a relationship we need to work on, and we'll be getting the expected result from the overridden method. So encapsulation. What is encapsulation? Encapsulation is about binding data and code together is called as encapsulation. Suppose if you take a capsule, medicine capsule, so capsule will have lot of chemical things over there, and it will all be mixed and it will actually well packed. That is called as encapsulation. In Java we can have Java beans we can call it as encapsulation. So encapsulation is a process of wrapping code and data together into a single unit. So here also they mentioned as capsule example from medicines. So advantages of encapsulation is providing a setter getter method. You can make class read only or write only. So it's like if you're writing any a class which is about setter and getter, if you don't want to allow other user to add some properties to your class, then you can able to provide all the properties as private, and you can able to provide allowed properties for writing. Otherwise I can put it as read only, that we can see it in programming time, and it provides you control over the data, the way you can able to control it uh, by putting the set getters. It is a way to avoid data hiding. You can able to hide the data whichever you don't want to show. We'll create a sample also. Start encapsulation. Employee, just employee bean will be creating, and this bean will have, employee will have, what will have, int emp no name and long salary. So instead of declaring variable like this, I'll be putting all the variables as private by default. So I don't want to show exposed to anyone, so that the scope will be within local. The scopes I'll be discussing the coming slide. So private means nowhere no one can able to access it, and I'll be putting private for all the fields. And so if I want to expose only uh, the employee number and name, I don't want to expose my salary, and for that I'll be doing is public get this start. Hope all of you knows the what is this, we already discussed. And I'll be giving access to my name as well. Sorry. Suppose if I can able to assign this data here like 1 to 2. Suppose if I'm getting 40,000, I'm putting. So here I'll be having employee details. Usually we won't put the data over here, but for demonstration purpose, I'm putting uh, values over here. Otherwise, I won't put it. So I'll be putting name, employee number, and salary, and I'll be exposing only name and employee number. Salary I'm not exposing. So if I'm creating a main method for this, main method I'll be adding, to save time I'll be using IDE. Employee emp equal to new employee. So I'll be trying to print all the values whatever is there. So you can see like you're not able to access directly the properties and all, like how we used to do, like other properties. So here we are not directly able to access. Suppose if you see the parent and child, right, you can able to access directly the properties of hotel and all. Here where it is not the case, bike and all you can able to access directly. But here it is not the case. It is not actually suggesting to allowing all the values because of this keyword as private. So the way to do this is we can already call get MP number, get name. So we able to allow to access the salary somehow. There's nothing defined for salary because salary is private and they didn't provide any getter method for that. So salary is not allowed, and we just need to print his name and value. Suppose if he is allowed to change your name, if he allowed to change your name or employee number, if the uh, office is trying to change his employee number or something, so you can able to provide access for his employee number. With this, so to refer that we have to use, so here if you see this one and this one both are same, that case to refer the current being property, this you have to use it, otherwise it will be or else you need to change this value, this variable name. Without changing this name you have to use this keyword, then it actually point to this variable and this will point to this parameter variable. These are we can set it, and what I'm doing here is before getting that set employee number 2244, I changed it. What is the data type? So it is not returning anything, so I'll be putting void over here. So setting employee number, here I'm allowing and I'm setting the value. Now I'll print whether the latest employee number is generated or not. Yeah, it's got generated and his employee number is now 2244 now onwards. So these what encapsulation, like you can able to restrict data or hide data whatever you want to hide and whatever you want to expose. It depends on using the setters and getters, and there is a way to generate setters and getters instead of writing manually using ID. You can able to do this. The way to do this is source, right click over there, the file, source, generate setters and getters. These are all of us will be using in real time. Just select all the properties and generate. That's it. To generate all the properties, whatever is required, you don't want to require, you just need to delete it. That's it. As simple as that. So for our development purpose, we just wrote our setter getters as per our requirement. So we can able to do either way. So this is about encapsulation. The next very important topic is about package. So Java package, we just discussed how to create packages and all. So the packaging will differentiate the classes and all, easily maintainable. Suppose as we can see, developing our code with control statements in one package, loops in one package, and oops in one package. Suppose if I want to create a new package, go to here and create a new package over there. You can put it as control statement loops and everything is gone, then we can put it as package. This is not allowed because it's a predefined keyword thing. Packages is it is allowed. So here if you want to create a class, then you can create test. So this will be created under package test com.co.java.packages.test. Suppose if I want to import any class outside the, suppose if I want to import this do while loop, then what I'll be doing is import do while loop. So this is actually picking the package and is full package it is taking com.cojava.loops.do while loop. It is actually integrated. So this class I can directly use it here. So this is about packages, how to create a package and how to use it and how to import other files with the packages using import statement. This is about packaging, and with packaging we can able to differentiate all the classes, and even for system defined classes will be stored in, suppose if you want to use utilities, suppose we haven't gone through the collections, but for testing I'm telling list ls lt if I declare. So there are few system defined packages are there. Those will be imported, import list. See, this is a list package which is not with us. It is actually there in Java SE library. It is imported along with this. So these are custom class which we created. So this is the way to import the packages. This is the way to create the packages using IDE. And our package is pointing to test class. Core Java.packages is belongs to test class, and we can have multiple classes within the package like how we created in other packages. So this is about package. As I mentioned, like there are default packages we have. We just imported utility package, and list we can have it in different packages. One is util and one is awt. Now we're importing util. As per the diagram, you can have different packages are there, lang, util and awt, and we just tried one of them. And access modifier. This is a very important topic. There are four important access modifiers. What is access modifier? To make allow your class or method to access particular scope. Suppose if you are declaring any method, here we wrote public. Public means it's a scope of access specifier where and all it can able to access actually. So there are four types of access modifiers are there: private, default, protected, and public. So these are all the class modifiers we have. Private will be more restricted, as we can see in this OOPS concept just now we declared encapsulation. We restricted using private access specifier, correct? The private access specifier, so nowhere it can be accessible. Even this guy is trying to access, he is not able to access private variables. He is used to access through the methods which are public only. Private is not at all allowed. So the other private the access specifier is default, which is about within the package only these classes will be accessible. Suppose if this class wants to access these two files, it will be accessible, not outside the classes. If you didn't mention any public between the files, if you remove these, then this class will be accessible within this package only. Nowhere it will be accessible. That's a default. If you didn't mention anything, that's a default. Protected means you have a keyword called protected. So that's a keyword called protected, which is it is actually used for inner classes. If you mention this, then inner classes I'll cover it later. If you mention this keyword, then it is actually covered within this package level only. Within this package level, along with if this class is extended, if this is belongs to parents to some other class, that way it is actually imported. Otherwise, it won't allow. So difference between default and protected is default if you declare even whatever the case it is within this package only it will allow to import, like how we imported the packages here. It is package how we imported here the same way. If it is a default package, within this package only the classes will be imported, or nowhere else it will be imported. If it is packages, if the class is protected, then if you extend this class to here, then it is allowed to import. So the public is always accessible to everywhere, wherever you want within this. Suppose if this file is public, this will be accessible entire the project, wherever you want it will be accessible. So these are about access specifiers, and these the table we have. Private within the class is all the properties is accessible. Within the package no, outside the package no, outside package no, subclass also no. It is the default which is allowed within the class and within package only. Nowhere it is accessible, and protected is accessible within the class and within package. If it is extended, then with outside the package also acceptable, and without extends outside package, it won't be acceptable. The public is acceptable all the places. So these about OOPS concept, and this took very long, and, but these are very important topics. So that is the reason I took this much long, and it's good to go through one by one. And if you have more doubts, more detail about it, and uh, get clarified and be clear in this, because this is the very critical topic in interviews. All the interviews people, the first question will be, or second question will be the OOPS concept. Everybody will ask you what are the experience you have or pressure you are. Irrespective of experience, this is the questions people will ask it. Thanks so much.